Hello, welcome, it's Trevor Cutmore, and here I am in a different part of the country, but I am working. It's been a very interesting week for me personally, and that will come out later next year of what I've been doing this week. However, the UK property market, what is going on? The Nationwide Building Society, who watch and has been recognised as one of those organisations that look at the financial growth and fall of the property market. Well, they've just reported that the annual increase for the growth in property this year in 2020, believe it or not, they have said it's gone up 6.5% this year, and that includes a 0.9% rise just in November alone. So many of you would say, but Trevor, where are those rises? Again, in town, in let's say the lower end of properties, I haven't seen huge rises. Yes, a little bit, but nothing like 6%. Maybe 2,000 or 3,000 more, maybe 5 at the top, but that'd be it. And but that'd be well over 100,000, maybe 120. It's going up to 105. But the thing is, where it's really taken off is in the country, the bigger houses, the houses where people want to have office space. So what people are doing is coming away from their workplace, a bit like my son in Munich. He was working in an office, but he hasn't worked in that office for 7 or 8 months now. Actually, I think it's longer. I think it's coming up to 9 months pretty soon. So the thing is how is he being productive working from home? Well, he's been extremely disciplined, and he's been one of the top earners and productive for what he does is in sales. So he's hit margins and targets and everything, and smashed through and broken new records, etc. So think about it in a logical way. Those people who can work at home with the discipline, and they're great producers, you can see that companies will keep them and work with them. Whereas if you are at home and you actually work better with people, you're going to be penalised, because I think they will be the ones who are going to be cut away. That's a really interesting thing. Is that discrimination? I don't know. So the market has really grown in large houses where people have enough rooms to make an office, and so they don't have to go now into a city, whatever city that's going to be, and work with loads of people. So we can see the future and the way business is being done with Zoom calls and everything else. Things are changing at a very rapid pace. The whole thing, I think, which is the most risky thing is for landlords, is the rental market. So over the last few years, the government has really put upon, I would say, landlords in the way they brought in Section 24, which is a tax, more tax for people owning properties, investment properties in their personal name. It does not apply to limited companies. So we are seeing a lot of people move portfolios into limited companies where they do have to pay capital gains tax and stamp duty. There are certain schemes you can work at, but I'm not going into those now. The rental market, as I say, has been hit and penalised and penalised and penalised. Especially, you cannot charge fees to tenants anymore for doing the checks on tenants, your credit checks, your background checks, and that has a real cost. I think we pay something like £24 to NRLA to do the checks for us. So we go to a central body. I wouldn't advise you doing it yourself. The thing is those costs and the lack of income, especially if you own properties in your personal name, means that you're making less money. What does that mean? A higher rise in rents. But because of what's been going on with the virus and everything, people were out of work, I think rents have stayed pretty static this year, but I'm fully expecting to see them go up next year. Now, what we need to know is what's going on with the government. Well, it's very interesting. There are a group of very large organisations, however, including Arcadia, and it looks like they're going to the wall, but a big group of organisations have written to Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, and asked him for a minister for renting, for the renting sector. So they want a specific minister. Why? Because 28% of private rental houses is that, for private renting, that is, it takes up to 28% of the market. So the rest will be housing organisations, private households, and council, etc. But private rental sector is open for more regulation. I think it's coming. I don't think what they put in place has worked. I know that there are enforcement officers now for Article 4, for all these sorts of things, but I'm not seeing much going on with rental properties which are in poor state of repair. And I think that's where these big boys, these big organisations that want to do build to rent and take over the renting market. Remember, 28% is a big chunk of the rental market. So what do the big boys want to do? They want to get a slice of that 28%. So remember, big boys have big budgets and they can do many things. They can do a lot more than guys with just 2 or 3 properties. So the big boys want a minister to come in and now say, right, we want you to check everything, and if it's not up to standard, let's say that you have single radiators or the EPC is not up to standard, and that's legislation anyway because that's been brought in and it changes again in 2025. New build properties, gas boilers in 2025 can no longer be fitted inside them. It have to be electric or biomass or whatever it's going to be. So the big boys now are going to try and get a chunk of that private sector, of 28% of that private sector. What we need to do as landlords is to make sure that we have our properties in the best condition. No doubt about it. We're going to have to pay more attention to detail. We're going to have to make sure we regularly inspect them, regularly do works. Don't let it get bad. So if you've got damp, deal with it straight away. Don't let it become a bigger issue. If your roofs are leaking, deal with it immediately. Otherwise, you've got a whole room to air out. You might have to take plaster off, etc., etc. And this is a really big thing for you and me to pay attention to. And I think this is the very start of something that is coming down the road. Sometime next year, I think we're going to see that a minister for renting will come in really to target the private sector landlords to very much start to inspect single-let properties, because they're already doing multi-lets, and they will start to squeeze that sector of 28% of private landlords. To do what? Well, some of the changes, and I've seen many properties, and unfortunately the private sector, when landlords, especially if you go back 30 years, where landlords have had properties, and I've bought a lot of properties from those landlords who started 30-40 years ago, it's given them good money. Some of them haven't spent a penny on those properties. Not a single penny. I bought 2 properties in Lincoln which are side by side, and they both had tenants which are in over 30 years, and I can tell you they were not fit for human habitation. They were in terrible condition. So imagine if a minister is to come in and get an army of inspectors to go around the private sector and inspect single properties. And rightfully so. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about we shouldn't get inspected. I think we must get inspected. I'm all for it. But what this is about, and this video is a warning to landlords to look at your portfolio, to assess them, and start to make movements to bring all of them up to speed and to be a great standard. If you actually think about it, if you can have a better standard of property, then you're going to get more rent. And case in point, that one those 2 that I bought, they were bringing in £325 a month in rent because they've been rented for so long. 30 years ago, that was a good rent, but they didn't do anything to it. They left the rent ticking along. I refurbish both of those properties and I bring in 575. That's £250 more because it's in good condition. So remember, look, if you can start bringing it up to speed, and you might have to revise some where your money is going, so you might have to put back. Remember, there are grants available now. Look into that, see where you can take advantage, and this is the time to do that, because this is a warning that the big boys are coming to get a slice of the 28% private sector. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Watch my series on development videos, which come out every Friday. There's 6 episodes. You can go back. There's actually 7. You go back one week before as well. I hope you enjoy them. Please put your comments, subscribe, and share this video. And I wish you all the best. God bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye.